Section 98. Restrictions on transferability of shares. 1. Except as expressly provided in the registered constitution of a company, shares are transferable without restriction by a written transfer in common form. 2. Subject to Section 322, the registered constitution of a company may impose restrictions on the transferability of shares, including power for the directors to refuse to register a transfer and provisions for compulsory acquisition or rights of first refusal in favor of other members or officers of the company. 3. A restriction shall not be imposed under subsection 2 on the transferability of any shares after the shares have been issued unless the holders of the shares consent in writing to the transfer. 4. Despite subsection 1, a company may refuse to register a transfer of shares to a person who is an infant or to a person found by a court of competent jurisdiction in the Republic to be an infant or a person of unsound mind. Section 99. Register of Debentures. 1. A company which issues or has issued debentures shall maintain a register of the holders of the debentures. 2. Subject to Sections 106 to 109. A. The register of debenture holders shall be kept and maintained at the address at which the register of members is kept, and B. Sections 35 to 39 shall apply as regards the giving of notice to the registrar of the place where the register is kept, taking into consideration the details in the register of debentures. Section 100. Restrictions on transferability of debentures. 1. Except as expressly provided in the terms of the debentures, debentures are transferable without restriction by a written transfer in common form and the transferee is entitled to the debenture and to the monies secured by the transfer without regard to any equities, set-off, or cross-claim between the company and the original or an intermediate holder. 2. Subject to Section 322, the terms of a debenture may impose restrictions on the transferability of debentures including power for the company to refuse to register a transfer and provisions for compulsory acquisition or rights of first refusal in favor of other debenture holders, or members, or officers of the company. 3. Where a restriction is imposed on the right to transfer a debenture, notice of the restriction shall be endorsed on the face of the debenture or debenture stock certificate and, in the absence of that endorsement, the restriction is ineffective as regards a transferee for value whether or not that transferee has notice of the restriction. Skip Section 101. Section 102. Transmission of shares or debentures by operation of law. 1. In the case of the death of a shareholder or debenture holder. A. The survivor or survivors, where the deceased was a joint holder, and B. The legal personal representatives of the deceased, where the deceased was a sole holder or last survivor of joint holders, shall be the only persons recognized by the company as shareholders or debenture holders. 2. A person on whom the ownership of a share or debenture devolves by reason of that person being the legal personal representative, receiver, or trustee in bankruptcy of the holder, or by operation of law may, on the evidence being produced that the company may properly require, be registered personally as the holder of the share or debenture or transfer the same to any other person, and the transfer shall be as valid as if that person had been registered as a holder at the time of execution of the transfer. 3. The company has the right to decline registration of a transfer under subsection 2, as it would have had in the case of a transfer by the registered holder but does not have a right to refuse registration personally of that person. 4. A person on whom the ownership of a share or debenture devolves by reason of that person being the legal personal representative, receiver, or trustee in bankruptcy of the holder, or by operation of law is entitled, before registration personally of that person or a transferee, to the same dividends, interest and other advantages as if that person were the registered holder and, in the case of a share, to the same rights and remedies as if that person were a member of the company, but that person is not entitled before being registered as a member in respect of the share, to attend and vote at a meeting of the company. 5. For the purposes of subsection 4, the company may at any time give notice requiring that person to elect to be registered personally or to transfer the share or debenture, and if the notice is not complied with within 90 days, the company may suspend payment of the dividends, interest or any other monies payable in respect of the share or debenture until the requirements of the notice have been complied with. 6. The provisions of subsections 2 2. 5. Shall not apply to a company the shares of which can be transferred through a scheme established under the Central Securities Depository Act, 2007, Act 733. Skip sections 103, 104 and 105. Done.